Hello, Math 130 students. We are going to pick up on page 19. So here we go. Darren can skateboard 2 miles against 4 miles per hour wind. In the same amount of time, he skateboards 6 miles with a 4 mile per hour wind. Find the speed Darren skateboards with no wind. So this type of problem is definitely going to be a distance time rate times time. So here, I'm going to go ahead and make a box. So I know that I have distance, I have my rate, and I have my time. So here inside my boxes, I know that he can go against the wind, which means he's going to be going slow if you're going against it. So he says that he can go 2 miles against the wind. So 2 miles is going to be a distance. So I'm going to have 2 here. And it says that the wind is 4 miles per hour. So I'm going to have my skateboard. So let's say it's Darren, right? And it's going to be minus the wind since you're slowing down. Now, the second part, it says in the same amount of time, he skateboards 6 miles with no wind. So here, let's go with no wind. Or sorry, with wind. It specifically said with a 4 mile per hour wind. So if you're going with the wind, you're going to be going fast. So you can go 6 miles, which is your distance. And so here I'm going to have Darren plus my wind. And here my times are the same. And it's specifically saying that the wind is 4 miles per hour. So here my wind is going to change. So here my wind is 4, so d plus 4. And I'm also going to have d plus 4 since it's the same. So I know that distance is equal to rate times time. So the only thing I don't know is time. So to get time by itself, I'm going to divide by r. So that distance divided by r is equal to my time. So in that first equation, I have that 2 is equal to d minus 4. It's my distance times my rate times my time. So to get time by itself, I'm going to have 2 divided by d minus my 4. Now, in that second equation, I'm going to have my distance is equal to d plus 4 times my time. So I'm going to have 6 divided by d plus 4 is equal to my time. And since now time are equal to each other, I can set both these equations equal to each other. So 2 over d minus 4, since the time are the same, I'm going to say it's equal to 6 over d plus 4. So then from here, it just becomes a cross multiplication. So 6 times my d minus my 4, it's going to equal the cross multiplication of 2 times my d plus 4. So solving for this, I'm going to get a 6d minus 24 is equal to a 2d plus 8. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to subtract a 2d from both sides. So that 6 minus 2 is a 4d minus 24 is equal to 8. So I'm going to add 24 to both sides. So now I have that 4d is equal to, and now I have my 8 plus 24, which is 32. And if I divide both sides by a 4, I will get that d is equal to my 8. So I know that d represented the Darren. So Darren can skateboard 8 miles per hour with no wind. Okay. So that is how I'm going to answer this question. All right, well, let's look at number 7. It says Matthew jogged to his friend's house 12 miles away and then got a ride back home. It took him 2 hours longer to jog there and then ride back. His jogging rate was 25 miles per hour slower than the rate when he was riding. What was his jogging rate? So again, I have a distance is equal to rate times time. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So let's see. So we have a jogging and we have a ride when you go back home. So it specifically says that he jogged to his friend's house 12 miles away. So I know my distance is equal to 12, okay? And then he got a ride back home. Perfect. It took him 2 hours longer to jog than to ride back. So riding back, I don't know how long it took. So X is going to represent the time riding back. Okay. His jogging rate was 25 miles per hour slower than the rate when he was riding. So actually, let's deal with that first. I should have started with that. His rate. So I'm here with rate. It's 25 miles per hour slower than what he was riding. So his riding is going to be X. Let X represent rate of riding. So then jogging rate is going to be 25 miles per hour slower than that. So X minus 25. Okay. And I still know that I have 12 miles that I went, right? And what I was trying to say before was this part, was that it took him 2 hours longer to jog there than ride back. So we are going to use a different variable. So let's use the variable t for our time, okay? So, or better yet, let's make that a lowercase t. So I know that it took him 2 hours longer to jog, so t plus 2 hours more versus just t. So I know that distance is equal to rate times time. So I know that from my first equation, going across, 12 is equal to x minus 25 times that t plus 2. And so we can also see from our second equation, our second row, that 12 is equal to x times t, right? Our distance is equal to my rate times my time. So I'm going to isolate one of these variables and do a substitution. So here I'm going to divide both sides by an x. So I can get that 12 divided by x is equal to my time. So every time I see a t, this is what I'm going to be plugging in. So I really have from equation number 1, 12 is equal to my x minus 25. And that t that I'm plugging in is 12 over x plus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL this out. So if I do my first, I'm going to have x times 12x. So here, since the x is really a fraction, and the numerator and the denominator, that cancels out, so I'm going to get a 12. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to have a positive 2x, and over here I'm going to have 25 times 12. And that's going to be a 300 divided by x. And then I'll have a subtraction, because negative 25 times 2 is a negative 50. So the first thing that I think I want to do is combine my 12 and my negative 50. Try to clean this up a little bit. So 12 is equal to 12 minus 50, which is a negative 38, plus my 2x minus 300 over x. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 38 to both sides. So now I have 12 plus 38, which is going to be 50. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and get my LCD from these two fractions. So it looks like it's going to be an x. And I can even put a 1 over here. So I'm going to multiply so I can get my LCD of x. So this is times x, so that's a times x. This is a times x, so that's a times x. So now what I really have is 50x over x is equal to 2x squared over x minus a 300x. Now that all of my denominators are the same, I can drop it. So I really have a 50x is equal to a 2x squared minus a 300. So I'm going to give myself more room and rewrite this. So I have a 50x is equal to a 2x squared minus a 300. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 50x from both sides. So I can get that 0 is equal to my 2x squared minus my 50x minus 300. So here, once I factor, my GCF would be a 2. So I'm left with an x squared minus 25x, and 300 divided by 2 is 150. So if I do the AC method, or if I just do guess and check, that is fine. I'm going to need to multiply 150, that adds up to a negative 25. So now that I've found my factors, I know that this is going to be an x plus a 5 and an x minus a 30. So I have x plus 5 is equal to 0. So x is equal to a negative 5. I have x minus 30 is equal to 0. So x is equal to a positive 30. Don't forget what x represented. X represented the rate in miles per hour. So can you ever go negative 5 miles per hour? No, when I'm talking about rate, I'm never going to be thinking about a negative rate, okay? So the only thing I can think of is my rate being 30. So I know that the rate, maybe I'll change this in a different color. My rate of writing is 30 miles per hour. My rate of jogging, and remember the rate of jogging was at x minus 25. So I would do 30 minus 25, which is going to give me 5. So he jogs at 5 miles per hour. And that is what they're looking for. What is his jogging rate? Well, the rate of him jogging is 5 miles per hour. So here I gave myself an entire page to do this problem, and it still wasn't enough. So sometimes you will be needing a lot of scratch paper, especially if you write big. And I, write big, and that's just what happens, especially when I'm writing this on my Chromebook. Okay, so let's look at number 8. Jill was training for a triathlon, so she planned a day of exercising. She spent a total of 2 hours riding her bike and running. She biked for 12 miles and ran for 6 miles. Her rate for running was 10 miles per hour less than her biking. What was her rate when running? So again, I can see that this is a distance, rate times time problem. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. So I know that she has biking and she has running. Okay. So here she spent a total of 2 hours riding her bike and running. Okay. And then she biked for 12 miles and ran for 6 miles. So what I really want to focus on is here. She biked for 12 miles and she ran for 6 miles. So for biking, that's going to be a distance of 12, and for running, that's going to be my distance of 6. The next piece of information, it says that her rate for running, so running, was less than her biking. Well, how much less? 10 miles per hour less. So her biking rate, I don't know how much that is, but her running was going to be 10 miles per hour less than her biking, okay? And I know that my total time is equal to my 2 hours, okay? So I don't know if she spent 1 hour biking, 1 hour running. I don't know if it was 45 minutes. I don't know if it was 10 minutes, right? Or, I just don't know. So I know a couple of things. I know that distance is equal to rate times time. So if I want to get my time alone, I'm going to divide. Distance divided by rate is equal to my time. So for that first equation, I have 12 is equal to x times my time. So here I'll have 12 divided by x is equal to my time. For my second equation, I have my distance is equal to my rate times my time. So 6 divided by my x minus 10 is equal to my time. So I know that these times added together should add up to 2. So 12 over my x plus 6 over x minus 10. And remember, it specifically said she spent a total of 2 hours. So this is where I'm going to get my 2. Okay. Now I need to find my LCD. So here it's x and x minus 10. So for that first fraction, 12 over x, what's missing is my x minus 10. Plus, and I have my 6 and I have my x minus 10. So what's missing here is an x. And it's equal to my 2 over 1. And what's missing is the x and the x minus 10. So now that my denominators are all the same, I can drop it and just worry about my numerators. So that I have a 12x minus 120 plus 6x is equal to a 2x squared. And 2 times 10 is 20. And I have my x. So I am going to add 12x and 6x so I can make it a little bit neater. So negative 120, oops, not plus, not equals, but plus. So 12 plus 6 is, I need to go slower. 12 plus 6 is equal to 18x minus 120 is equal to my 2x squared minus my 20x. From here, I'm going to subtract 18x from both sides and add 120 to both sides so that I can get a 0 on one side. And I have 2x squared, and negative 20 minus 18 gives me a negative 38x plus 120. Well, I know my GCF is 2, so I'm left with an x squared minus 38 divided by 2 is a 19. And 120 divided by 2 is 60. So now I need to factor. So I have that 0 is equal to 2, x squared minus 19x plus 60. If you guys like doing the AC method, that is fine. It's really up to you at this point. So I need two numbers to multiply to 60 that adds up to a negative 19. So I found two numbers that multiply to 60, negative 15 and negative 4, and adds up to a negative 19. So now I know that this is 0 is equal to 2, x minus 15, and x minus a 4. So So here 2 is equal to 0, x minus 15 is equal to 0, and x minus 4 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 15 and x is equal to a positive 4. So here 2 is equal to 0. That does not make any sense. That we just throw that answer out. And remember, what did x represent? X represented the time it took Jill to bike. So remember here, I have that the bike rate is x. So biking rate is x. So that the running rate would be x minus 10. So could that be possible if I plug in a 4? Well, 4 minus 10 is a negative number. She can't be going a negative speed, so it can't be 4. It could only be 15 for x. So now I know that her biking rate is 15 miles per hour. And if I have 15 minus 10, that's going to give me a 5 miles per hour. So now I have her biking rate and her running rate. So when it specifically is asking for her rate when running, well, that's going to be my rate for running is my 5 miles per hour. So that's how I get my 5. Okay. So again, this problem, I took up a whole page, but I ended up really needing 2 whole pages. And that's just what happens sometimes, especially if you're writing this on your Chromebook. So always get enough paper when you need to, okay? All right, well, I hope this makes sense. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me or contact the Math Success Center or our embedded tutor. Thank you.